You're sitting there, perfectly still, and your skin just rises. Tiny bumps spreading up your arms like a wave you didn't ask for. You're not cold. Nothing dangerous is happening, but your body did it anyway, and every time it does, you probably just ignore it. That reflex is 400 million years old, and it's not a glitch. Most people write goosebumps off as a weird leftover from evolution, a biological footnote, something the body does for no real reason anymore, like an appendix you can feel from the outside. That framing is wrong, and the real explanation changes how you understand every single moment your skin has ever risen without your permission. The mechanism behind it was never decorative. It was armor. It was a threat signal. It was intimacy made physical. And some version of it is still doing all three right now, in a body that has no idea it's living in the 21st century. What this comes down to is one question worth sitting with. Why does the same reflex fire when you step into freezing wind and when a piece of music hits you so precisely that your chest tightens? The answer is not a coincidence. It's a map. And the part of that map most people never see is the part that tells you something real about who you are. There is a label that follows this kind of sensitivity around. Oversensitive, too emotional, gets chills over nothing. People who tear up at a song, who feel their skin prickle at a stranger's grief, who get hit by a sunset the same way others get hit by a near-miss car accident. They are handed a story that there is something excessive about them, something unregulated, as if the nervous system is misbehaving, as if the correct version of a human being is one who moves through the world like a smooth, sealed surface, untouched by music or cold air or the sound of a crowd suddenly going silent. That story has never been accurate. The people who feel this most intensely are not malfunctioning. They are running the oldest software in the human body at full resolution. The question was never whether the sensitivity is real. The question is what it was built for. The phenomenon has a name in psychophysiology: piloerection. It comes from the Latin for hair standing upright, and researchers who study it have found that it splits cleanly into two categories that feel completely different from the inside, but share the exact same biological trigger. The first category is thermal. The second is what scientists now call frisson, a French word that translates roughly as shiver, but points at something far more specific. Psychologist Matthew Sachs spent years at the University of Southern California studying people who experience frisson regularly during music, and what he found reshaped how neuroscientists think about aesthetic emotion. The people who get chills from music, he discovered, have measurably different brain architecture. More fibers connecting the auditory cortex to regions that process emotion. More communication between hearing and feeling. Not more fragility, more bandwidth. But to understand why that bandwidth exists at all, you have to go back much further than Sachs's brain scans. Here is the first truth. Your ancestors were covered in hair. Not the thin, scattered coverage most humans carry now, actual dense fur. The kind that traps air and holds heat and changes shape under muscle contraction. When cold hit them, tiny muscles called erector pili pulled each hair shaft upright, creating a layer of insulating air between the fur and the skin. The same mechanism a dog uses when it shakes off after swimming. The same mechanism a cat uses when it puffs up in a doorway. Your body still has those muscles. Every single erector pili is still there, firing the same instruction it fired 3 million years ago on the African savanna. The only thing missing is the fur that would have made it visible and functional. What you feel as goosebumps is the ghost of an insulation system your body runs, even though the coat it was designed for no longer exists. The hardware is intact. The software is intact. The fur is just gone. Here is the second truth, and this one is where it gets harder to dismiss. The same erector pili fired not just for cold, but for threat. When a predator appeared, when a rival approached, when the edge of a territory was crossed, the fur rose. Not randomly, strategically. A fully puffed primate looks larger. A raised coat signals readiness, aggression, presence. Other animals still do this visibly. The grizzly bear whose shoulder fur stands when it squares off, the cat whose back arches into a ridge of standing hair, your body does the same thing. When your nervous system reads danger, real or social or imagined, those same muscles fire. You don't puff up visibly anymore because the fur isn't there, but the signal is identical. The next time your skin rises in a tense room, in a confrontation, in a moment where something feels off before you can name why that is not anxiety misfiring, That is a threat detection system that kept your ancestors alive long enough for you to exist, doing exactly what it was built to do. Here is the third truth, and this is the one that explains Sachs's finding. The same arousal system that fired for cold and for threat eventually got recruited for something else: meaning. Deep social meaning. The moment a group of early humans sat together and one of them made a sound that synchronized the room, a rhythm, a chant, a collective breath, the nervous system that had been calibrated for physical threat began responding to social resonance the same way. The hair rose, not because danger was present, but because something important was happening. Something that mattered to the group, something that needed to be felt, not just heard. Frisson is that same mechanism, running on music and art and grief and beauty, because at some point in human prehistory, those things became survival relevant too. The tribe that could feel meaning together stayed together. The tribe that stayed together survived. The problem is that this is all happening inside a world that has no idea what to do with it. The shift from small, acoustically rich, emotionally dense tribal life to the flat, screen-mediated, noise-saturated environment most people now inhabit happened in a geological eye blink. The nervous system had roughly 200,000 years to calibrate to fire circles and communal song and the physical presence of people who mattered. It has had maybe 2 generations to adapt to open-plan offices, earbuds, and the specific emotional bluntness that comes from processing most human experience through a glass rectangle. The erector pili still fire, but most people have been trained to treat the signal as noise, to apologize for the chills, to call it embarrassing or too much or nothing. The cost of that dismissal is real. When you cut yourself off from your own oldest signals, you lose a channel that was built to tell you what matters, what threatens, and what your body recognizes as true before your conscious mind can form a sentence about it. So here is how to stop paying that cost. The first step is to start treating Goosebumps as data, not decoration. When your skin rises, pause long enough to ask what triggered it. Cold air is obvious. But if it wasn't cold, something registered as significant: a sound, a shift in the room, a piece of information your nervous system processed faster than your thoughts did. You don't have to act on it immediately. You just have to stop overriding it automatically. The second step is to seek Frisson deliberately and without apology. Find the music, the art, the writing, the physical space that reliably raises your skin. Neuroscientist Robert Zatorre at McGill University found that Frisson triggers a dopamine release in the nucleus accumbens, the same reward circuit that fires for food and sex and social bonding. Your body is not being dramatic when it responds this way. It is being rewarded. It is being told, this is real, this matters, stay here. Treating that as weakness is like calling hunger a character flaw. The third step is to notice when the reflex fires in the presence of other people, because that is the oldest version of the signal. When someone speaks and your skin rises, something in your ancient social brain has recognized resonance, truth, or genuine pain, or rare alignment. That recognition predates language. It predates civilization. It is the nervous system doing the thing it was specifically built for, registering that something in the human field around you is real. You were never oversensitive. You were never broken for feeling the world in your skin before you could explain it in your head. You are running hardware so old it remembers being covered in fur, standing larger against threats that no longer have claws, shivering in response to beauty, because your ancestors learned that beauty was how the tribe recognized what was worth protecting. The bumps on your arms right now are not a malfunction. They are a memory. And the body that carries them is not behind the times. It is simply remembering a time when feeling this precisely was exactly what kept everyone alive.